Would everybody join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. This is a public hearing to discuss the proposal submitted by the Regional YMCA requesting 2024 Neighborhood Assistance Act funding for lighting upgrades for the Emerson Youth Development and Aquatic Center, and the Westcott Foundation requesting NAA funding for the Regional Open Space Fund as published by the State Department of Revenue Services. The members present are Ms. Carr, myself, Steve Dunn, and Bob Belden. Is there any public comment? Anybody want to make a comment about this? Are you sure? So, just so people are aware, if people are watching, this process and this application allows corporations to make donations to not-for-profits and be able to deduct them from their taxes. We do this every year that I'm aware of for the last 8 years. It doesn't cost the town anything, but it just facilitates the process so that these organizations can get donors. And it's worked pretty well. Bob sat on the Y board for a while, right? And we used to do this back then. Is there any comment or questions?
Just the same thing that I mentioned last month, which is, you know, it's the same groups year after year. Maybe we could try to figure out a way to see if there's any other.
I don't know why any charitable organization wouldn't want to take advantage of this. It's just, to me, it's amazing.
I feel like we're not advertising it. I mean, I was guilty of that as well, trying to understand what it was. I talked to, Lisa about it because she manages it. Is she still doing that?
Yeah, you make a good point. You know, in the following year, we should probably just try to get this out. I think Westcott could help us do that. They know a lot of not-for-profits.
I actually reached out to them about it, and
Well, they just started their foundation 2 years ago for exactly this reason, so they could get funding to do projects that corporations otherwise wouldn't fund because they get no deduction. Yeah. Okay.
well, with them, it seems a little, I don't know. It's like, which hand is talking to the other? They have their own pool of money, so now here we are. It's just kind of redundant, like the towns are giving back to the COG.
Yeah, I think that Westcott is set up the foundation primarily because there are things that they do not get funding for that they would like to do, though literally all their funding comes from grants, all of it. Well, the towns do contribute, but this coming year, 90% is from grants. So you raise a rather, I think, correct statement.
But
Bob?
Just, I think about the major charities we have that operate in this town. We know who they are.
Yeah.
Right? We don't need to lean on somebody else other than maybe they might suggest some others we should reach out to, but just getting something out there and putting something on the town website, right? Just do a couple of things that might have a chance of getting one or two or three more. Because you're right, it's the Y's done it over and over again. And Westcott does it because they know mostly about it. So.
Yep. Okay, great. Any further comments?
Nope.
Okay.
This is a public hearing. Any comments? No?
Okay.
No.
No further comments. I make a motion to close this hearing. Do I have a second? Second. Any further discussion? All in
No.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, hearing's closed.
All in favor?
All in favor, right.
What did you say?
I made a motion, you seconded it.
And then
Any
you said
further
all in
discussion?
favor.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
There's no vote, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna use the bathroom.
Easy.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Members present are Ms. Carr, myself, Steve Dunn, and this gentleman. What's your name, sir?
Mr. Belden. Sir.
I'm going to make a motion that because it is senior night and the awards are tonight, We have two people from the Board of Ed who are going to make a presentation later on where they are on their budget vis-à-vis the town budget. I would make a motion so that they can get to that award ceremony. I would make a motion that we move the Board of Ed discussion to right now before public comment. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second?
Let her.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Yeah, actually,
Yeah.
so we should be moving the tower conversation then as well, because there's a lot of parents and families that would probably like to be here for that conversation, but senior night.
Well, what we, because we do have senior night and awards night, we want to move this event, this discussion, and the motion tonight will be to move it to Conservation and Planning for their comments to us. So I don't think we're making any decision tonight on whether to move forward with having a tower on town property. We're going to make a motion to move it to Planning and Conservation. That will give us another month for anyone who's not able to be here tonight to come make comment next month, right? I think that's a fair way to do it, so.
So will we still have the presentation?
We should hear what he has to say about why
Yeah.
he's chosen the site he's chosen. and
Yeah, so
that would be
people
on the
can-
record for people.
Okay.
Be on the record so people can see it. So we have a motion to have Board of Ed come, we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do you guys want to come up?
So I'll keep this really brief.
Who are you, young lady?
Sorry, Rosa Fernandez. I'm the vice chair of the Board of Education.
And your address?
25 Cross Pond Drive.
Thank you.
Sure. So I'll just keep this brief, just to give you a background, and for everybody who's listening, just to give a brief background on the relationship that has been built between the Board of Education and the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen over the course of many years, where we have removed contingencies from the Board of Education budget, where those contingencies will be held now on the town side. And so at the end of every year, as you will typically probably see in a routine manner, we come forward with any requests that have caused our budget to go over budget, usually in the areas of special education, occasionally utilities, but primarily those are the areas of the budget that are particularly problematic for us to budget. And those are the main reasons why we have the exposures that we do this year. So per the budget appropriation request that we have made, that amount is $674,329. In actuality, our real overrun is over $700,000. We've been able to cover most of that, or sorry, not most of that, but a great portion of that, over $77,000 within our own budget and due to budget freezes. The remainder of that is the agreement that we have.
Yeah, so for everybody, for the past 7 years, we've had an agreement with the Board of Ed that for expenses that are extremely volatile, like special ed, teacher turnover, a couple of other things, that we will hold a contingency on the town side that if the schools need it, they can come to us and ask for it. In the past 7 years, I think 3 times they've needed it and 4 times they have not. So it works really well for both sides. And the Board of Ed and Rosa and Casey usually come to the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance meetings on a monthly basis, usually starting in October, November, where you begin to flesh out those numbers and tell us where they are. So this shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone. It is planned this way. It is what we want to do. It allows us to keep more funding on the town side, and it evens out and smooths out the school's budget so they don't get X amount and then all of a sudden have $1 million in special ed hit in September that they absolutely did not know was going to happen. So it's worked pretty well in the past, and I think it'll continue to work pretty well. I know you guys have worked really hard to get that number down, and we do appreciate it very, very much. Any questions, concerns?
Is that agreement in writing?
No, I don't think we do have it in writing.
We have never
Formally,
put that into writing. There have been many communications similar to our budget request that have codified that within the language, but nothing formal.
We
Yeah,
probably should.
yeah, we probably should.
should,
That's a good
yeah.
idea.
Well, I think if we really try to, the last few years have been particularly wonky with COVID and inflation and everything else, but I think, I mean, if this were the federal government, it would be a no-go. Like, I don't like this at all. I don't think it's smart. I think we need to do a better job budgeting. We're killing taxpayers as it is, and every year our taxes continue to go up. And for what return? You guys heard me speak at the Board of
Yeah.
Finance where our schools are not performing. So what is the return on our investment? And I don't see the over 700,000 on here, so where is that spelled out?
It's on it's the first subtotal in their letter. And that, so if you're looking at the Baril, is it John wrote that letter?
It's from me, actually. KCD at 30 Hubble Mountain Road, Sherman, Connecticut. I'm the Director of Business and Operations for Brookfield Public Schools.
On this document?
Is that part of the original packet or the one that I just got?
You just,
Is it stapled to the back or, I don't.
This came out Friday.
Thank you. Yeah, I didn't see that.
I can speak to that a little bit, and I do understand your concern and where it's coming from, Tara. The $732,000 and why it's important that we don't hold that on the Board of Ed side is because at the end of the day, the bottom line number that the town approves for the Board of Education is what you're taxed on as taxpayers. And when the budget is created, this one was created in December, and then it goes through the budget process, going to the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, cuts are made. And at that time, we are budgeting precisely to the student needs at the time. So when the current budget was created, and the really the volatile number that you're looking at is the special education tuition and special education transportation. This is the cost for outplaced students that are attending schools other than Brookfield Public Schools that we are required by law to pay for that education. At the time this budget, the 23-24 budget was developed, it was budgeted to the students we had and knew about in the district at that time. 5 of those students either left the district or returned back to Brookfield Public Schools. And then 6 new cases, whether they moved to Brookfield or were outplaced as a result of, a PPT and all the different details that we, Director of Business and Operations and Board of Education, are not privy to those details because that's a FERPA. We are required to fund that. And so if at that time, where we're developing the budget, I said, well, we've had an overrun of $300,000 in tuition for the last several years. Let me put $300,000 in the tuition. I don't have any idea that we're going to have to spend that because I don't know those students that are coming to Brookfield. You're then taxed on that, and that's also not in my purview, not responsible to the taxpayers. So the budget is developed precisely to what we know at the time, given the fact that we are legally required to fund the education for special education as a town. And so having that contingency on the town side eliminates the taxing on taxpayers for that Board of Education budget that we may not spend or we may have to spend, but understanding that if that overrun does happen, the town has that contingency fund available, does allow us to budget much more precisely in all other areas of the budget. I hope that helps.
It does, and I understand all of that. It's just insanely frustrating to see this huge dollar amount. I mean, there's got to be a better way. This is, second year in a row that I'm seeing this.
Yeah,
but the 4 years before that, we gave back $400,000 or $500,000 each year to the
Yeah.
town.
Yeah.
So it comes and goes. The last 2 years have been hard, right, with inflation.
Yep.
I mean, I've lived this, so.
How many other towns in the area are experiencing these
All
major
of them.
overruns?
All of them.
I would say just from where I live in Sherman, we have a much smaller budget, $10 million. The Board of Ed went to the town for a little over $300,000 for special ed costs. And they haven't done that in 10 years. So
Yeah, I think.
it's unfortunate, but
I think the advantage of the way we're doing it now is what Bob just said, but if we weren't holding it in contingency on the town side, the Board of Ed would be coming to us, making an educated guess as to what special ed transportation was, and teacher turnover. You would then put $700,000 in your budget, which you may never spend.
right,
You may never need, but it stays in your budget,
right, exactly.
and you can spend it,
Right.
And
whichever
that is
way you
how
want.
we had historically done it maybe about a decade
Right.
ago.
I like this way because you budget right to the child, right to the teacher, right to the actual expenses that you can predict with some accuracy. And then if you need additional funds, you come over to the town side. And as Bob said, for 4 years, we didn't need that. For the last 2 years, we're all getting killed here.
Yep.
Right?
Well,
But
let me take another line
Sure, go
item
ahead.
here, because special education's easy to pick on.
Yeah, true.
We put a negative contingency in the Board of Education's budget. If they took their budget on teachers and said, I'm just gonna replace every teacher with what's in the contract, they would come up with a number, and then we take $200,000 out of it on the hope that
That-
enough high-paid 30-year teachers retire and we hire in people at a lower level.
Right.
Any rational school board would not budget that way, right? In fact, we never did budget that way.
Right.
And it was actually our Board of Finance came to us and said, we'd rather you take a little more risk in your salary lines and assume some amount of turnover, but what got your back if it doesn't work? And that's how that came about.
Right.
I actually liked that as a Board of Ed chairman because it forced us to go after a lower number. And in some years, we achieved that, and we achieved a little more in some years. In other years, this year was bad. John showed us this in February, which was all the people who retired or left the district were in shortage areas, and they were hard to find teachers who weren't, higher priced type of teachers. So it didn't work out this year. The Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance said, we got your back, and that you're here to ask for us to give you your back. In that case, it's not that we're overtaxing, we actually got aggressive in how we're budgeting, so that we would try to get some savings for the town in the tax base that we budget for. And you know what, this year didn't work out we had a negative $200,000, and you actually had $225,000.
Correct, yeah, out of the 24 sort of teacher turnover positions that we had, 15 of those were in high-need areas like high school science or special education or BCBA or bilingual teachers. So they were all high-need areas, and the teacher shortage in Connecticut is a very real thing. And so, yeah, it's not always just the first grade teacher that, can be
Nothing
replaced.
against first grade.
No, I love first grade teachers.
But there's a lot
There's
more
not,
of
there's
them available.
more first grade teachers than there are high school physics
Yeah.
teachers, so.
The reason I brought up other towns is it's important to do the analysis to see how we compare, but also not too long ago, I remember, I think it came from the COG, and I don't know where they are in the conversation, that there was going to be some state money for special ed. Has anybody heard anything further about that?
We do get some
cover-
now,
We do
get
right?
some, but
No,
it's-
because everybody's in this boat,
Yeah.
right?
Everybody
So-
is. Yeah.
and everybody gets
Help.
Yeah, so every town pretty much gets assistance from the state in terms of the excess cost grant for special education. The percentage of their reimbursement does differ depending on the socioeconomic status of the town. We probably are at about 75% of the additional cost that a special ed student would incur on the town, right? It's a very confusing calculation.
Right.
But we, essentially, we are getting probably the lowest
So
percentage.
let me see if I can, let me see if
The
I
lowest
can-
percentage reimbursement
I
rate.
spent a lot of time on this one when I was on the Board of Ed. The town, the way it works in the state of Connecticut is they calculate a number that's 4 times your average per student payment. So if we have an average per student of like $18,000, that number's $72,000. The town has to pay everything, any cost of special ed, 100%, the town or the district has to pay that up to the 72,000. We pay 100. They pay 75% above that threshold.
Correct.
And so so as much as the state says we're here to help, they don't
very low.
realize how painful it is with one student that comes in, that all of a sudden you have if it happens to be a high need student, how much that can impact your budget, because you would end up, 1 or 2 of those, you're eliminating teachers to cover it.
That's
And
right.
the state needs to change its formula.
And there was that conversation, which
Yeah,
is why
but
I
they've never
asked.
done it.
I
They've
think
never
we
done
need
it.
to maybe inquire or ask where they are with that.
I have asked our state rep and state senator for 7 years to have the state absorb 100% of the special education costs. And then parents can know that any school district they go to, their child is going to be taken care of, and those school districts will not be penalized. It seems to me a better, fairer, more equitable way to do it. It's been deaf ears so far.
Yeah, we did have a legislative brunch with our state reps and other districts in our area a couple months ago,
Yeah.
2 or 3 months ago, and that was the topic
That
of
was the
about
topic.
80% of the conversation was exactly this, special education cost and funding, and the burden it really is placing on these districts that you can't plan for that, right? I get that. And you'll see in that summary of the memo, there is an increase of about $100,000. It ended up being roughly $89,000 or $92,000, and an increase in additional excess cost grant money that did come to the town as a result of the increase in special education.
But it gives you a sense of it. It's, we incurred $600,000 more on special ed, and we got $100,000 from the state.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
It's a pain point for
Yep.
everybody.
Not a
Absolutely.
zero-sum game. Okay, any other questions, concerns, issues?
No,
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Congratulate all the seniors for us. Thank you. Okay, we'll move back to our regular agenda. Public comment. Who have we got for public comment?
Hi. Caroline Ford, I work at the Brookfield Library. I don't live in town, so. Hi, everybody. My name's Caroline Ford. I'm the Brookfield Library Director. And I'd like to respond to a recent public comment questioning the use of $10,000 for an author event at the library. The library received this money through a grant from the Brookfield Education Foundation. This money was received specifically to be spent on the Brendan Slocum author event, and the library is thankful to the BEF for funding this event. Anytime we receive funds through a grant, we are ethically bound to use the funds in the way they were granted. So thank you.
Thank you, Caroline.
Hi, Logan Sullender, 46 Obtuse Road South. I'm here today as the president of the Brookfield Education Foundation. Also speaking like Caroline did about this grant. We are a local nonprofit, 20 years old. We fund innovative educational opportunities and hope to foster lifelong learning. We do so primarily through funding grants in the community, both through our schools and through other organizations in town, one of which most recently was the library for the Brendan Slocum event. Their grant had come to us. We had discussed it as a board, voted, agreed on it, and funded it. And I would just agree with Caroline that the money could only be used per the way it was written in the grant, which was to bring the author visit here. And it was used for that purpose. So we just wanted to make sure to clarify from our end as well. I know that was something from the public comment at the last Board of Selectmen meeting that had, I think, looked to see if the funds might be able to be used for something else. And just reiterating that they would not have been able to. They needed to be used for that event. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Karen Russell, and my husband and I live at 13 Signal Hill for 24 years, and we've never had any cell service till the past year. I understand the dilemma for the police, fire, and EMS, but we have concerns for the teachers and students and how close the tower is. Option A and B would be in the area right behind my house. It's very steep back there, and I just see that Merrin Brook is at the bottom. It divides the back of my property. It overflows the banks on a regular basis whenever we have heavy rain, and it's washing out the back of my property. My concern with the cell towers is that A and B would be right behind the house. And when we have heavy rain, this is going to wash out more of my property. And also it carries logs, stumps, all kinds of debris. And we also see in the winter, there's a spring that comes out the side of the hill, and it runs down, looks like a frozen waterfall. Once the trees are cut down for the cell tower and the area around it, I'm afraid it's going to wash down the hillside and cause a lot of damage to the back of my property, which is getting eroded now. and we're losing trees from where it washes out. We also have an eagle in the back, and this is his hunting and nesting area. And I would hate to see him lose that. I mean, I know they're protected, and I think that has to be investigated before they go any further back there cutting down the trees. And if anybody on the board would like to come to my house, come in the backyard and see what I'm talking about, I welcome you.
Thank you.
I'd like to do that.
Carrie Swift, 25 Pocono Ridge Road. I just came to say, I know last month especially, we came with comments, last 2 months, we had a letter for the Board of Selectmen to sign, and we just wanted to say thank you to the Board of Selectmen because as a follow-up, there was a special meeting, and I wish more people could have been there because all three of you worked together to make the letter right, and everybody had input, and the letter went to Katie Dykes, who is the chair of, commissioner of DEEP, the Department of Energy and Environment, because they're combined now, and also Governor Lamont. And we do really appreciate that. And I just, you know, it's really good to see everybody working together because we need to work on this as a town. That compressor issue, Brookfield has taken our fair share of health and safety since I've been in town. This started, and that's 30 years. So you know, and I hear from people, not a lot of people, most people are concerned and want to stand up to this, but you know, oh, this is a fight you can't win. Why are we bothering? Well, the more that we've looked into this, and I've been at it since 2006, off and on. We had meetings with the Pipeline Safety Commission. I mean, this is a federal issue, but it's a state permit, but it's really a federal air permit, and they need one for New York, too. And they don't have it yet. Every day they don't have that permit, we're winning. But regardless of we win on this issue or not, the more you look into this, this is an industry that regulates itself. When you hear about their pipeline inspections, their pipeline safety, the air quality, we're asking for the air testing. We appreciate that was in the letter before they issued this permit because there's no ambient air testing up there. But any air testing that's done, stack testing, pipeline safety, is done by the industry itself. It's done by Enbridge and TC, which is TransCanada, the companies that actually are Iroquois and Algonquin. They make these nice, fancy, native names sounding nice, like they're nice companies. They're not. And that's my opinion. After being at this through 2006, not. So we have to look out for our residents and ourselves. Look out for those school children at Wiskaneer. Like the 1900feet.org is the website we have because it's not safe. It's not safe for our air, the safety of the pipeline, and I really appreciate that our Board of Selectmen is standing up for us, and our state reps and our federal reps. We really have to work on this all together. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Carrie.
Hello, I'm Kathy Van Duzy, 198 Wiskaneer Road, and a member of the Stop the Brookfield Compression Station Expansion Group. So I'm just here today, which I never thought I would be saying a couple months ago, and to have my heartfelt thanks to the three of you for coming together and moving us out of the hole, because you have no idea the ripple effect throughout Connecticut from your letter, and I'm just proud to be a Brookfielder again. Barely, but I am. Because it really matters. What you three do matters to all of us. And now I believe that you have just saved our lives, but I don't want to be premature, but it made a big difference. You should hear the feedback that we're receiving. So I was really happy to be able to, because of that, to publish yesterday, was its soft opening at the block party, the Defend Brookfield fact letter. And so we realized that it's written to be kind of basic, but really emotional. So I left a copy for you in the record, and I'll probably send you a link so that you can look at the things. So we're going to publish the whole thing on the 1900feet.org website this week. So anyone that didn't receive a written one, I really encourage everyone to go there and get it, because because if this pipeline does get approved, we're toast. So everybody has to get involved, as the thing says. We need everybody, everybody. I don't care what your political statements are, nothing. Forget them. We all have lungs, and on this issue, we have to stick together. I mean it. And I'm hoping that when we do stick together, and if we prevail, which would be really great, we can just learn, we just redirect our muscle memory and all get along. That would be really good. So that's my hope for the pipeline project. And next month I'll be back with an ask. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joanne Cafiro, 18 Lakeview Road. And I just want to speak also about the pipeline. I never get tired of it. All of us are excellent researchers. We're always looking for the latest research on the effects of toxic emissions from what comes out of the pipeline and the compressor station, and learn new things every day. I also want to thank the three of you for putting some teeth in your opposition by sending a letter up to Hartford. We're delighted. I can't thank you enough. I want to take my 3 minutes to talk about a few things about the large fossil fuel companies. They know they're toast because sustainable energy is on its way, and they're doing everything they can to put as many pipelines up and down the East Coast to eventually liquefy it and send it abroad. And that's in our backyard. They do not support or have any interest in the health and well-being of people who live in the area of the compressor station. And in fact, on one of my searches, I found that one of the companies gave a $25 million donation to Louisiana State University to not study the health effects of fossil fuel emissions. We also know that natural gas, natural quote unquote, has come into question about how dangerous it is. It was always thought that it's better than coal, but methane is the primary component of natural gas, and it is a potent greenhouse gas. Recent research indicates that incidental releases or leaks, which happen at compressor stations, from the extraction, production, and transportation of natural gas greatly reduce or even eliminates the climate benefits of natural gas. Studies have reported that the Environmental Protection Agency substantially underestimates by 50 to 100% actual methane leakage. So we're really delighted that we're going to have some air testing. The other issue I wanted to bring up is the EPA has a good neighbor law. So if any town is the unwilling victim of emissions coming from somewhere else, the good neighbor law says that that town has the right to clean air and can go after the place where that air comes from. Unfortunately, it was in the DC Court of Appeals, and our favorite fossil fuel company has taken this directly to the Supreme Court, which is going to, I think they have either heard it already or will be hearing it. So all to say that TC Energy and Enbridge are well-oiled PR machines that regularly cajole, guilt trip, and threaten small towns like ours to play ball and go with the flow. Make no mistake, we're not dealing with a company who's our friend. Our town is a vehicle for the transport of fossil fuels to other states and possibly other countries. These companies are expanding their reach, their chaos, and destruction now to maximize their profits.
Thank you.
My name is Lynn Zubak. I live at 55 Ironworks Hill Road. And I wanted to just talk about the cell phone towers. So if I looked at that map of the recent proposal of the locations correctly, it appears that they're going to be located in the middle of the trails in the woods that go from the high school to Williams Park. Is that correct? Okay, it's kind of hard to see. So that's not far from the tennis courts, the baseball and softball fields, and where all the kids sled
sled ride down that big hill in winter. So with all the recent construction and buildup in Brookfield, there are very few places left for residents to relax and connect with nature. I've been a Brookfield resident since 1996, and my husband and I walk on these trails nearly every day of the year. And we enjoy the various birds and wildlife that make their homes there. Lots of people use these trails, runners, walkers, dog walkers, and I believe the high school cross-country team trains on these trails. So putting a cell phone tower in the middle of these peaceful trails will ruin that for everyone. I understand no one wants them near their house, but putting it here is not a good solution. So I'm just asking if we can please preserve our hiking trails and save one of the few places left in Brookfield where residents can enjoy time relaxing and enjoying a beautiful walk in nature, and not by ruining the trails with the construction of a cell phone tower. Thank you.
Hi, it's nice to be back. JP Krapewski, 1 Hamlin Court. I'm here to voice some opposition to the proposed cell phone tower locations. I'm glad that the board listened to the voices of the residents in April, and thank you very much for your support to try to find an alternative solution. But due to the reasons that I cited back in April, mainly for a few categories, there's the potential health effects, the environmental impact, and also the aesthetics of it, as well as the effect on property values. Those 4 areas are concern for the residents, and my wife and I are in opposition to that. I'd also point out, as I sent an email to you, and thank you very much for your response today, that I noted our town has 17 cell phone tower locations already, and a comparable sized town just across the river, which is Bridgewater, has only 3. Now, I listened carefully at the April meeting and heard the problem statement is that we don't have coverage on the river for potential emergencies, or we don't have coverage on Riverford Road. And as an engineer and technically minded person, I think about solutions. And the potential solution I would ask to explore is that rather than have an 18th cell phone tower on our land, to potentially have one just across the river where it's sparsely populated, it's not near any people, and it would still provide a similar coverage. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Jessley Pineda, 12 Cresttree Drive. Hello. I just have 2 things. Just one is a suggestion, really. In talking to some people that don't live in our town and just watch the meetings, is maybe implement like a positive spotlight to give them some fun facts about our town and some of the positive things that we do as a community, because they may not have access to that information, like the Brookfield Spotlight newsletter, because they're not from Brookfield. I think a lot of people that are looking to move to Brookfield are watching these meetings. And so I know a lot of us come here to voice our concerns. I know our town is not perfect, but we do have a good amount of great things going on in our town. For example, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the Brookfield High School graduate party that's happening on graduate night. We shut down the entire high school for the seniors, and they spend from 10:30 p.m. to 5 in the morning with us. We are looking for volunteers. If you would like to sign up, just putting that plug in, you can sign up for a shift. But we do this so that the high school seniors have a place to stay safe and have a great time. All the local communities, businesses, most of them give so much to our seniors in raffles and even for decorations to help the seniors have a great time on their last night. So that's just one example that anyone that's out there listening to these meetings can have something to look forward to if they were to come to our town and live with us. The second thing is thank you so much for hearing me, Mr. Dunn, Mr. Beldentaro, regarding the Center School Ad Hoc Committee, and to the residents also to know what we can do to move forward with the Center School location. We're very excited about that prospect and look forward to working with you all. That's it. Thank you.
Tom Keller. Tom Keller, 3 Newbridge Road. I want to speak out in favor of the tower. That corner of town has no service for emergency personnel or if people have a medical or fire emergency. I personally had a fire at my house, and unfortunately the landline, because I actually do have an old POTS landline, was one of the first things to get burned, so my home line was out. Had to use a cell phone. It got picked up by a Bridgewater tower, which of course put me to Litchfield dispatch, which caused a delay because I had to get transferred to Brookfield. Now, in my case, it was no big deal, a couple minutes. On a medical emergency call, that couple minutes could make a huge difference in someone's health or life. So, I mean, we've already found out from Vale Road they're gonna put a tower somewhere. If it's on town property, at least we get free use of it, and we have some say in it. It just makes sense to put it somewhere on the town property. I mean, do what they do in New York and decorate it with fake trees, if you want. But the corner of town needs some coverage. That's it. Short and sweet.
Nadia Cave, 16 Obtuse Rocks, and I'm here to speak in opposition of the proposed tower, like I did before. And in case of an emergency, I think from what I've heard, a lot of times when it's not a one-person emergency, but a lot of people involved, and like something major, they actually sometimes shut down, don't work. So if there could be a wired solution, that might work better. I also would love to see if it's possible to get like statistics, how many people were actually saved or would have been saved by having maybe more connection, as opposed to how many people, kids, staff in the school, animal life, etc., is affected, because that's something that accumulates. It's not something like sudden. So it would be interesting to maybe measure if it was possible, which I don't know if it is. But something else that I wanted to speak to that I think could be a concern. I've heard from multiple sources that the contracts that the landowners sign when they go into contract with the telecommunication company for these towers, that they are for like 30 years, and I've heard there could be like a number of 5 years in there to reconsider, but the 5 years is only on the side of the telecommunication company and not on the side of the landowner. So if in a few years, I'm thinking like the town wants to, maybe there were some eagles killed or some nature harmed, or you have realized something else that you can't reconsider because you are in this contract. I haven't seen the contract myself, so I don't know. But I just wanted to bring that this is something that I would be concerned about. Also, that we all know that FCC was sued back in, when was it, 2021, in August. The court told them to provide the reasoned explanation for its determination how the guidelines protect, and they still continue to defy the court order. They're still stalling. FCC hasn't done anything. They still use the 1996 guidelines, which of course those who build the towers follow, but it's based on the heating of the tissues, not on any other harm that's being caused and was measured by, and there are plenty of scientific studies of the health and environmental harm, etc. So maybe because there's that they're trying to push so many towers now, including in like schools, because there is some action going on within the courts. So maybe they're trying to kind of get in before it all stops. Again, I don't know, but if it is true that it's just for 30 years and only the telecommunication company can do something about it and not the landowner, I think it's concerning. That's, I think, all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Patricia Basio, 2 Whitetail Lane. Thank you, ladies, for all the research you did on the pipeline. I'm here in opposition to the tower. I happen to work at a daycare center on Old State Road. There's actually 3 daycare centers 3 buildings on that road. And every day when I go to work, I look out and I'm in direct line of that tower on Vale Road. And I know that that's not good for my health, the staff, and all the young children that attend those 3 daycares. So I'm here to say, please take into consideration the health risks involved with this. I've done research on it, and I know there's a lot of health risks. So I want you to keep that in mind, and I hope that you turn down the application. Thank you.
Oh, it says extreme. I'm sorry. This Safe and Sound Pro measures the radiation poisoning, and it's at extreme.
I'm sorry, ma'am. Can you tell us who you are? And
I'm so sorry, I forgot I was involved. Actually, I'm Judith DeGraffenried, and I'm with Connecticut for Responsible Technology. I live in Trumbull, and I have a terrible sinus headache, EMF headache from taking the roads. Our group has been involved with Brookfield in opposition to some of the towers. We proved in the past that there was no need. Now, I would like to, going back to an earlier discussion, talking about the special needs cost. Nobody ever asked, why is special needs skyrocketing? And it is, because it's in alignment with the increase in all the electronics, all the EMF pollution. I happen to be the mother of a special needs child. That's how I got involved in this. Why don't we look to the solution to that devastating special needs problem? Now, it is a proven fact. I mean, I'm not saying this is my opinion. It's a proven fact that pulse modulated microwave radiation, now millimeter, disrupts cellular function. And the US standards are not aligned with international standards. International standards like China and Russia are like 10 microwatts per millimeter per centimeter. We are 1,000 microwatts per centimeter in America, and we don't even follow that. So there is no oversight. Where I work, it's huge. I'm being irradiated constantly. Commuting to work, I almost have to quit my job because the commute has gotten so bad. No standards. There's no oversight. Now you're talking about the pipeline oversight.
ma'am, you should address the
Okay,
board. No.
I'm sorry. There are no, we go out and we measure these things. And we've measured the number of towers in Brookfield, proving there's no need. But there's also no accountability. Let's talk about the FCC. That's correct. The DC District Court ruled that their standards going back to 1996 were arbitrary. And what was the other word? I can't remember. But they were arbitrary and not based. They ignored 10,000 studies. Now let's talk about the CT Siting Council that's pushing all this on us. Did you know that they're financed entirely by the industry? It is not constitutional. Now, I asked a state rep the other day, well, is it, do they have authority? How can they have authority if they're financed by the industry? She said they have statutory authority. Statutory authority is not constitutional. And the EPA has also ruled against agencies, West Virginia versus EPA, not the, what did I say, Supreme Court. I have such a headache, I'm sorry. But there's no oversight, there's no accountability, our standards are not aligned with the international standards, and other countries take better care of their children. There are about 5 or 6 other countries that limit or do not allow this in the schools with our children. And that is why one of the factors in autism skyrocketing.
Thank you. That's it, okay. So we're going to move on with our meeting. Our next item on the agenda is a presentation by Homeland Towers. Mr. Brigatti, would you like to?
Good evening, First Selectman Dunn, Selectman Belden, Selectman Carr. Just for the record, my name is Ray Brigatti, the regional manager for Homeland Towers. Homeland is a tower developer out of Danbury, Connecticut. We simply build the infrastructure for the wireless providers, such as Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile. There's a new entrance of a carrier called Dish Wireless coming into the market. I've been siting towers for about 24 years in Connecticut. Certainly well versed in how to put towers in. Do it for a living, obviously. I don't drive the process. The carriers come to Homeland with the need for the justification for a coverage gap to be filled. In this case, a carrier approached Homeland Towers, and they asked us to assist them in finding a suitable cell tower location up in this area by the high school. I'd approached the town, and I would add, just from a background perspective, we're the same company that did the tower here on the town campus back in, I believe it was 2017. I also recently stacked a tower in September of last year at 60 Vale Road. This would be our third tower if we're successful in building here in Brookfield. So we've been looking. We approached the town last September when Ms. Carr was first selectwoman, gave the town a proposal. I always like to approach a town first to give the town the first crack at the revenue share, to be able to control the aesthetics, the process, and so forth. I just don't approach a town. I approach private residents as well. I send out proposal letters. The town has an opportunity to make a decision if they want to have a tower on town property. If they do, I'm more than willing to work with the town. If the town wishes to take a pass, that's fine as well. We'll just site it on private property. We do that all the time. But I'm not here to force the town to make any decision they don't want to enter into. I think the town has wonderful properties up here. When I say wonderful, meaning large acreage properties that are set back from residential homes. I initially started the dialogue in working with the town across the street from the high school, which is roughly an 18-acre vacant parcel at 62 Long Meadow Hill Road. I presented some options at the October, November, February Board of Selectmen meetings. It was clear, obviously, the town wanted to have the tower be further away from the high school itself. I think the three options we had presented to the board at that time were anywhere between 400 and 600 feet away. We also heard some concerns from the folks on Hamlin Court, if you could get it out of their, line of sight per se, because they are on a higher rise. So, First Selectman Dunn and I have had conversations about entertaining a site at the high school property, which is 45 Long Meadow Hill Road. And we've had further discussions in entertaining a site on the adjacent abutting property, which is 7 Long Meadow Hill Road. Our goal is to certainly please the town and try to get as far away from the school. We presented two options, and that's up there before you right now on the screen. From an orientation standpoint, the purple that you see in the top left corner, that is the high school. That is Long Meadow Hill Road. To the left, running north and south. The blue is basically a wetland area. We proposed an A and a B option. The A option is the one lower on the screen there. It's basically 800 feet, linear feet, from the corner of the closest school building. Option B is approximately 1,000 feet from the school building. In further discussions with the town, we've even had some discussions about an option C, which would get it to about 1,400 feet from the school. I've spoken to the carrier, because I don't make that decision as a developer. The carrier is the one that drives this process with their network. And I'm here to tell you that certainly option A, B, or C would be adequate for the carrier to satisfy their coverage goals in the area.
Who's the carrier?
I don't share that information right now, but it's one of the top 4. So what I would say, I'm happy to answer any questions on these options. I would like to also add that Selectman Belden and I walked the property today, this afternoon, just before this meeting, and we've had discussions about can we site the tower even further away than the 800, 1,000, or 1,400 feet, and would Homeland be willing to look at siting it on the 7 Long Meadow Hill property, which is roughly a 54 acres, and that is just to the south. And initially, my discussions with the town was to keep it off there, but it sounds like there's no deed restrictions. We've done a cursory review, and if we entertain this, we would do a very in-depth title review as well. But that site would certainly work without, something on the top up there would work for the carrier themselves. A typical cell tower site, we have to bring utilities. We have to bring an access road, and that comprises primarily of underground conduits for electric and telephone. The The access road is typically a 12-foot wide gravel or pea stone road. It's there for construction of the site. The site is an unmanned facility. They're visited very infrequently by the carriers, typically once every 3 to 4 months. We build all of our towers to be co-locatable, meaning we just don't build it for one carrier. The siting council who oversees this process, they are there to prevent tower proliferation in the state. They want to make sure one tower goes in and that accompanies or accommodates all the carriers. If the town ends up being our landlord, like here at the town campus, yes, indeed, you will have free use of the tower. Typically, we find that fire, police, ambulance likes to have the top spot antennas coming off the tower. I'm happy to answer questions from a real estate perspective, obviously. We've had quite a bit of dialogue. I will say this, and I've said this before on the record, we have a private landlord ready to go. And I don't say that in a threatening way or to force it down the town, but you know, the same thing played out at Vale Road. The town had first crack to go at the Public Works Department, and they took a pass, which was fine. I understood the town, that property had some challenges. So we ended up going on private property at 60 Vale Road over by, just behind the Quest Golf driving range. That scenario could play out here if the town wishes to take a pass. We'll just move forward on our private property that we have. But I think the town has ideal property based on the size of the acreage of either 45 or 7 Long Meadow Hill Road. In addition, I should add that there's been discussion that kind of ties into this. We presented the town with a proposal, a leasing proposal for ground space on town property. The town also has in front of them a lease to go on the 60 Vale Road Tower to place emergency equipment on that tower, and there's a cost for that as well. Happy to answer any questions here this evening
What are
and
the terms
continue the
of that
dialogue.
contract at the high school? How many years is the contract?
A typical contract, I haven't gotten it very in-depth with the town attorney with Tom, but typically our cell tower contracts are 55 years. We can go lower. When we build a site, we're putting $1 million into the ground. Not only does Homeland Towers want to know we're going to be there for a while to recoup our investment, but the carriers are also making a commitment. Typically, a carrier is going to put $300,000-$400,000 into a site with their equipment, and they're going to ask for a 30-year lease from Homeland Towers. So 55 years is typically a standard out there. We are able to shorten that, but not much further.
So I have a question about the data that the carrier somehow procures to determine that there's a need. I'm not buying that there's a need, and quite frankly, Ray, I don't think you have a private resident who's ready to go.
That's fine.
Maybe you're good at poker, I don't know, but I think that you know, I'm curious because for the 2 years that I sat in this building, not once did somebody call here to say, we have a problem, including the fire chief himself. The problem was over at Vale Road. And now I'm hearing that the Vale Tower is up, but there's still a problem. So what is it we're chasing after here? There's been 2 people who spoke in favor of this tower since we've started talking about it since September. One is Pamela, and the other is Mr. Keller. And if there really was legitimately a problem, wouldn't we have more people coming to the town officials saying, help us now? Or they would change carriers, because we've heard that there's plenty of coverage in that area.
The way the carrier world works, they have their network engineers. They know exactly what's going on with their network. They built it.
No, they want
They
money,
monitor it.
and they want to.
And they understand where the coverage gaps are and where the capacity issues are. The Vale Road is built for 5 carriers. AT&T is installed. They're not operational. The site was just lit by Eversource. So there's no signal there right now in that area. And oh, by the way, we have 2 other leases we just signed. And I heard that also, that same argument. There's no need for a tower at Vale Road. Well, let me tell you what. We're not putting $1 million into the ground for the sake of wasting money. There's a need out there, and don't fool yourself. And the need is not only for the carriers, but it's for the public safety. The fire, the police, the first responders, these folks rely on this. They rely on this technology to save lives. Don't fool yourself.
Well, I'd like to see the statistics on that, Chief. Maybe you can provide it so the public is aware of how many instances there's been where there's been that need. People have either died or suffered severely because of any delay in response. I mean, it just doesn't add up. If that data exists, the public deserves to know.
It doesn't. We don't track things like that. We know that we've had incidents. I mean, there's nowhere to track that. We've had incidents. We've had, especially in Lake Wilnoa, we had a diver, or someone drowned in Lake Wilnoa, and the first report that we got, as a throw cell phone coverage down at the boat launch, or someone driving up to the firehouse in the center of town, banging on the door saying someone's drowning in the lake. We've had other things. I live down there. I don't have cell service. I can't call 911 on my cell phone unless I'm hooked up to my house Wi-Fi and get help. All right, so I can tell you that if someone suffers a medical emergency in my neighborhood, they don't have cell phone. It's fact. It's bottom of Parkwood Hill. You go down that hill from the high school. That's why if you look, there's a big pull off at the top of Signal Hill. That's where people, when they're in the middle of a phone conversation, they're dark, pull over and fall. Because when you go down that hill,
For a certain carrier is what I understand. So if you have a problem with your carrier, maybe if you live in that area, you switch to another carrier.
One of which is an emergency services one, and it still drops off.
Well, we're getting the $6 million worth of antennas on the high school that you said were supposed to help with that.
They're not those aren't cell towers.
But you said the cell towers aren't part of the $6 million. The cell connection isn't part of that.
Those are two different projects there. The radio project is.
It's still emergency services and how you respond to calls, right?
Correct, and we rely, and I don't know how that got dragged into this.
Because there's antennas going up on the high school for,
Those are for radios.
Yeah, but they're not cell.
They're not cell towers. Those are for radios.
so everybody down in that area doesn't have coverage no matter what the carrier is. Is that accurate?
I do,
Right.
and I'm at the bottom of Signal Hill.
Like I said, there's been 2 people to ask for it. I don't understand the problem. We've heard nothing but folks who are against it for various reasons. I am adamantly opposed, as you all know, and I was with the Vail Tower as well, solely because there is no conclusive evidence that they are safe for the health and safety. And that is our primary duty. That is our
We have
number
no
one
control
duty
over
as
that.
elected officials of this town,
We
to
have-
take care of the residents.
We have to back up here a little bit. The siting council has sole responsibility and power to approve a cell site.
They are,
Wait a
the
minute,
siting
let me
council,
finish.
please.
They have said, and it is written, it is their policy and proactive communications to everyone. They do not take health as a consideration when planning and approving cell sites. You may disagree with that. You can argue with the siting council. You can go to your state rep. You can go to your state center. I'm just stating a fact. The siting council does not consider health considerations as part of their process. They do not.
And neither does DEEP, and neither does FERC, and all these other people we're trying to fight against. Have we heard back on the letter about the pipeline yet?
Not yet, but
Okay.
let's stick to
You
the
know,
subject
maybe
we're
we
on.
get together and do what the people want, which is no cell tower at BHS.
We
could write a letter about that to the siting council.
We could rail against the cell tower all we want for months and months and months. The town does not have the legal authority to stop the cell tower.
If it's on public property, we do. We don't want it.
Let me finish. We cannot stop the cell tower. We can stop the cell tower from going on town property by saying to Mr. Vergati, I'm sorry, we don't want to do this. Mr. Vergati then can and will, if he's got a client, find somewhere else, private property most likely, on Long Meadow Hill most likely, in someone's backyard most likely, and he can put the cell tower up and our zoning laws will not apply. They do not apply.
That's the world we're living in.
That is correct.
That's the world we live in.
It's a bunch of bullies who
So-
want to make money.
But we can work within the powers that we do have. And the powers that we do have is if we have one chance to be able to locate this cell tower so it's the least obtrusive, least invasive, furthest away from any building, our schools, everything. And that happens to be up on the hill behind the high
And
school.
how many feet is that to the high school then?
That's about 800 on there.
It's supposed to be 1,500.
Option A
according
is
to
8, option B is 1,000. The option C in the
about
corner of the
14.
property was about 14 and change.
No.
And Selectman Belden and I walked the property, and if we want to site this on the property, 7 Long Meadow, just to the south, we can get it to the 1,500 feet if that's what the town is looking for.
So,
The original paradigm of the establishment of the siting council, first of all, they're not elected body either. The siting council should be obliterated. They were, if you read their original charge, I looked at this during the Vail Road Tower thing when I actually spoke to the siting council and wrote in against the Vail Tower. They were supposed to put their devices at that time in less populated areas. And the world has changed, Brookfield has grown, You know, so anywhere you put it now, there's 17 other, you know, everywhere you go, you see them. Do we need another one? That's the question. And the answer is no.
I would say that's an opinion. I don't think that anyone would spend
Well,
$1
where's the
million
hard data?
to build a cell tower and rent out a cell tower. It was if I decided I've got 2 cars and I'm just gonna buy another one for $100,000. No, you would buy it and use it for a good reason. These companies are in the business to make a profit. They are. Homeland Towers is, the carriers are. And they would not want a tower that they didn't have a good economic reason for, whether
could I
we
ask a
agree or
question?
not.
Could I ask a question? Because
Sure.
we're dancing around. Somebody who's not having cell coverage is not calling town hall about it.
No.
They're calling their carrier, right?
Yeah.
Saying, I want better coverage.
They don't even have to call the carrier. The carrier has
I understand.
data on drop calls and.
We're not seeing anything compelling from the carrier on why that needs to have a tower there. And is it something we, in your experience, that as a town, we can ask for from your unnamed carrier?
Not this early in the stage. That will come out at the siding council. The carrier will have to provide coverage maps to the council.
Yeah, but we're
showing
trying to
what.
make a decision whether we would lease a bit of property and it's pertinent to us.
Yep. Well, again, it's something that the carrier during the zoning process will provide coverage maps to the siding council to show what's going on with their network, obviously. Again, I'm not here for my, you know, I got nothing to do on a Monday night in Brookfield, or we're here because there's a need. Don't kid yourself. And I'm a Verizon
Is it a
subscriber.
request we could make?
I'm sorry?
How would they respond if we made the request?
I had actually mentioned to Steve this week, if he wants to reach out to the executive director, Melanie Bachman, with the siding council.
Good luck.
There's times that the siding council will give a coverage map to a town to say,
I
hey,
asked them for that today and they said they would put it together for us.
there you go. So yes, the carrier's not gonna provide it at this stage of the game.
Yeah.
But certainly the siding council will provide those maps for you.
Yeah, let's see, they said it would take, they don't have them made for Brookfield yet?
I'm sorry?
They don't have them yet for Brookfield? But I talked to Melanie this morning, she said it will take 60+ days.
Okay.
to Put it together. They said they would do it.
I can talk to Melanie, and I know, you know, they have the capability of showing it to the town to show you what the coverage is.
I think that would be a big plus. to
I think
see
it would
what the
be,
coverage
I
is.
think it would be a basic requirement
It's-
before we would ever vote on
It
it.
still doesn't negate the fact that these guidelines that they operate off of are from 1996. Think about how the world has changed, the technology's changed, and there's no
has.
conclusive evidence that the transmission is safe
It
or
has.
good for you.
At this point in time, though,
In
we
which
have
case,
limited
I'm hard no.
ability. We can't, if Mr. Brigatti and his carrier want to build a cell tower, and we say no to town property, they will go somewhere else, and they will, most likely, they don't go to the siding council. How many times have you been turned down for a cell tower? Actually, flat out turned down.
Siding council, I have 100% batting average, and the reason for that is before I ever go there, I've done my homework.
Yeah.
I'm not throwing a dart at a board. I'm not putting a tower on the first person that raised their hand to say, I want it on my property. I look at, in this case, I've probably looked at 40 properties in this area. I've met and walked numerous properties with private residents. I've been obviously on the multiple town properties. We do our homework, and we pick a site that's gonna have the least environmental, visual, aesthetic.
But you don't do your
Check the
homework. You
boxes.
just said the furthest away is 1,400 feet, when clearly you're supposed to be 1,500.
No. There's no hard set. These towers, Ms. Carr, are on school grounds, 20 feet from schools, 50 feet from schools, 10 feet from schools,
Yeah.
on school rooftops, on light stanchions. The 1,500 feet is a number the town has respectfully asked Holman to consider. Siding council doesn't
And you
consider it.
haven't.
The siding council likes to see them 250 feet from a school, but it's not a set rule. The first selectman in his or her domain can say, I will waive that 250 feet as long as he or she feels it's not an aesthetic blight on the community. There's no hard set rule whatsoever on distance.
It is an
My
aesthetic
review
blight.
of the literature that's out there is that the most common setback distance to schools is 500 feet around the country.
Yeah.
When people have put rules in and have been celebrated by the environmentalist groups for setting a standard setback of 500 feet. There is a handful that have gone for 1,500 feet, including the state of New Hampshire, who have recommended 1,500 feet, but they haven't acted on it yet because 1,500 feet's a long distance. The signal dissipation is at about 300 feet. So to me, 1,500 feet is ideal because it's way outside the range of where it might be a problem. It actually gets into the ambient background noises in the environment. Whereas, let me finish. So your proposals here at 1,000 feet is well above the distances that would be considered safe by most. It's 1,000 feet to the school, and it's 600 feet to the edge of the playing field. So it's above the most common, which is 500. I still would like to see it at 1,500 feet, if we can do it.
We can do it with the understanding, you know, when you have a tower 1,500 feet away, you have more disturbance, obviously, more tree removal, longer access road, more cut and fill, and
Trade-off.
it's a trade-off. It's a trade, absolutely, absolutely.
Can I just interject for a second, going back to the data of a lack or gap in coverage? Did you all get one of these documents in an envelope like this?
Yeah.
We did.
Okay, so there was an affidavit signed where there's all this analysis requested by the residents of the town.
I don't believe that's an actual affidavit. I think it's something somebody made to look like an affidavit.
So now we have to investigate this?
No, it's just, I don't think it's an actual affidavit signed before a court of law. They just put the SS up at the
Well,
top.
I would encourage everyone to take a look at this if you're seriously concerned about it. It proves that there is sufficient coverage and that they monitored all the data's in here.
Can we put that on the website?
It's,
Yeah.
back and front, it
It's
tells
in
you
the-
all the roads,
it's in the-
where
sorry, but-
exactly they were measured. It's very thorough, it's comprehensive, and the summary is that they tested a total of 10 locations, and the analysis reveals there are no gaps in wireless communication services, and it confirms that every location tested had access to multiple service providers, even in the areas with lower elevation as the lake and the secluded wooded areas. And it's very, very comprehensive, and it's good work, these, you know.
So if you want to see that, it's in the agenda, it's in the correspondence.
It's in the correspondence,
It's
yeah.
in the correspondence, you just pull it up. Okay.
I will say, though, that there was a lot of gaps in the information that was sent to us in hard copy.
Yeah.
Like it was the front of the page and not the back of the page, so like there were whole addresses missing or halfway done, so I need to talk to the author and make sure I get a full data set on it, so.
Yeah. Okay. So at this point in time, I think what we should do is leave this subject open, continue to have conversations. Given that it is awards night over at the schools, I think there were some people there who would like to talk and discuss this at Town Hall. So I would make a motion that we move this, because we're going to want to do this anyway, we move this subject to Planning Commission and the Conservation Committee to get their feedback and input.
I think you need to pick a spot before you refer it to the planning commission. Otherwise, they can't really give you a straight answer on what
Here
they're
we can pick an
actually-
area. It's all in the same area. Within 300 feet of those two.
I mean, if Mr. Vagati has another client, why are we kicking this can down the road?
I would say if I
It's-
lived
are
on
we
Long
gonna put it
Meadow
there, or are
and
we
my
not?
neighbor put this tower up in their backyard, you'd have 50 or 60 people in here screaming and yelling.
Well, okay.
I
so
would, I
that-
wouldn't be
that's-
happy.
That's not on us, because it's not on town property.
Yeah, and then we're gonna deal with the residents who say, why did you let them do this?
Where are they
Right.
tonight?
A lot of people aren't gonna, it's like a lot of things. People address things when they come up and they're in their face, right? I'm sorry, we can't have, I'm sorry, we can't have the audience having a conversation. But everybody has their opinion, so I think what we should do is, we can get.
Is there another chart that shows option C?
Yeah.
I would actually like to formally receive an option C or D,
Okay.
and then forward that to the
Okay.
committee.
Ray, can you do that? Create an option C for us, based on the discussions that you had with Mr. Belvin?
Option C on the 45 Long Meadow High School property.
Oh, no, the option C that you would propose to them on the Long Meadow Hill property, and then the one we discussed.
So, an
that's
option
even
C
further away.
and a
C and
D.
a D.
See, could you do that?
I'll be happy to do a C and a D. I have a C with me this evening.
Okay.
Because I just got word from the carrier that it works.
Okay.
So, but I'll hold off on giving it tonight.
Yeah.
So what I will do and what I would expect is, when is the next Board of Selectmen meeting? First Monday in?
First Monday in next month.
In July?
Yeah, if you get that to us ahead of time, though, as soon as you get that to us, I would still leave my motion to send this to Planning and Conservation as soon as we receive option C and D. And you authorize the first selectman to send it to those two boards when it comes in.
And
with a comment.
I can tell you that the planning and zoning, looking at this from an overall development conservation
Yeah.
plan, they can look at both options, and, we can present both options to them. It doesn't have to be,
Or all
this
four.
is it.
No, I thought we would
Yeah.
send all four to them. We'd
Yeah.
like to get their input. The more people that give us input, the better, I think, decisions we make, right?
That's fine.
We've heard from the residents that people don't want it on town property
We've heard
at the high
from-
school. Period.
Some people don't.
How
That's
many
right.
have, how many have spoken, written in versus that have not?
I would say it's probably 80-20 against the cell tower in general, right? It's
Majority
less,
rules.
I think, actually against the cell tower on town property. And literally, no one has commented about it in their next door neighbor's yard, because no one's thought about that yet.
There's nothing they can do about it.
Yeah, yeah, but there is something we could do about it as a town.
Put it next
We
to the
could-
kids and the teachers and the
We
staff.
could
and
limit the exposure to a lot of
In
people,
our open
in my
space,
opinion. We're
affecting
just
the
gonna have
wildlife.
to disagree on this.
I think we should vote on it. What is it we're belaboring? Why give it to planning and
Do you wanna
commission
make a
and the-
motion?
Do you think the conservation commission is gonna go for any of this?
Do you wanna make a motion? You said you wanna vote on it, make a motion.
I move that we vote to disapprove any proposal of cell phone tower in the vicinity of Brookfield High School or on any other town property for that matter.
Do I have a second?
No.
There's no second.
They're not ready.
Into that discussion. So my motion still stands to send us to planning and conservation once we have, have A and B so far and get C and D, so that we can move the process along.
I don't think
rather
you
than
need
waiting.
actually, quite frankly, don't think you need a motion from this board to deliberate on sending it off to another commission to take a look at
You
it
may be
and send
right.
us input. You just do it. You ask the police chief and the fire department to do
Yeah.
it without a vote from us.
Well,
That's
how
true.
come
Just
they
do it.
haven't done
No,
that
you
to
do-
this point?
You need a formal motion to refer something to.
We're
Planning
asking for,
commission.
we're asking them for input. We're not asking them to make an approval.
That's true. Under General Statutes 8-24, certain improvements on town property need to be referred to the planning commission for them to give a recommendation report.
So
back to
that's
the Board
actually,
of
that's
Selectmen.
actually in the statutes?
Correct.
Okay.
That's what this would be.
So we still don't
Sorry,
have an
wasn't clear on that.
8-24, we've been talking about that for months.
Yeah, we would have to get an 824 from them. And I would like to send it to conservation too, because this is open space, Gursky, all that property up behind the school is very important to the town.
Is it, there's been discussion, is it actual Gursky property, open space
No,
property?
everybody calls it Gursky,
Okay.
it's not, it's town property.
Yes.
The Gursky stops, the Gursky property, there's two parcels, one is where the buildings are, and then there are the 4 fields above that. That's pretty much where Gursky legally stops.
Correct.
But people refer to everything between that and the high school as the Gursky property, I don't know why, I do it myself. Yeah. Yeah, it's all owned by the town, and we checked the deeds, there's no restrictions that we're aware of on the deeds. So I have that motion to refer this to planning and also send it to conservation. Do I have a second to do that?
Second.
Second? Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 I'm a no.
Opposed, okay.
I don't want the tower
So-
anywhere on town property.
Okay, thank you. So if you will do that, Ray, and send it to me,
Absolutely.
then we'll move it forward.
All right, thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on. Our next agenda is announcements. Coffee with the Community will be June 29th at the Highway Market at 616 Federal Road. Please come and join us. Again, we urge you to sign up for the Spotlight newsletter and the Everbridge management notifications. You can follow the Town of Brookfield, Connecticut Emergency Management Facebook page and the Conservation Committee donation for the purchase of open space. If you remember last month, we spoke in the town on behalf of the Conservation Committee, who was the controller of the funds, gave the Northwest Land Conservancy $53,000 to purchase land down by Lake Leelanau, and that's moving forward. We have openings on the Arts Commission, the Building Code of Appeals, Housatonic Mental Health Catchment Area Council, the Inland Wetlands Commission, Municipal Building Commission, WPCA, Youth Commission, Zoning Board of Appeals, and Zoning Commission. And we move on to the exciting part of the evening, our financial report from Ms. Marion.
All right. What we do is generally about every quarter we look for transfers, because that's part of our internal control process, that people can't do a purchase order unless they have money in the budget. And then as we get closer to the end of the year, we have to do transfers more frequently because people are trying to use up their budgets. We've got the general fund, the operating budget, and we have intra-department transfers. Those are within the departments. Those only need to be approved by the Board of Selectmen. And there's approximately 91,000 of money moving back and forth in that column. And then we have the inter-department transfers. That's money that moves between one department and another. The original one on the website, I put in that the Board of Ed was looking for $675,000. Dr. Barill's letter on Friday afternoon after the agenda went out said it was $674,329. So we have an inter-department transfer that we would like to put $674,329 into the Board of Education's budget in accordance with the way we do the budgeting. We would like to put $5,500 into legal fees, and we would like to put $4,000 into registrars, and that $4,000 was because it has been recommended to have security at the polling places, and that was a recent development. The money would come from contingency and various other line items. That contingency would be reduced by the $671, just truing up to their exact number, and then $67,244 of other line items that we're just going through, looking at them, trying to do estimates of where do we think we'll end up at the end of the year if we're this far in after 10 and a half months. Any questions on the operating expenditure transfers?
I don't. Tara?
What is
Bob?
the 5,500 in legal fees for?
The 5,500 in legal fees are for labor attorney that in the beginning of the year, I think that we were estimating we were averaging about 4,400 per month in legal fees. And then in the second half of the year, we're averaging about 2,400 in legal fees. We did per month. We did try to get a transfer earlier in the year, and the Board of Finance said, come back to us when you have used it all up. And so that's why we're doing this now.
Any other further questions, issues?
Yeah, the
concerns?
security at the polling places, I noticed for the referendum, New Milford Police were there.
Mhm.
Do we pay them more?
No, they get paid the same rate as our police and outside services fund. The towns, all the police in all the towns work together, so if New Milford needs somebody for outside service, and they go to their own officers first. If they can't find one of their own officers, they'll go to the surrounding towns, and they can go and do those jobs.
So what is this $4,000 for?
That's for the presidential primary vote and for the referendum vote. 2 officers, 1 at each polling location for 16 hours each.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, Bob? No?
No.
Okay.
I reviewed all the detail and was
Yeah.
rational.
Great, thank you. I make a motion to approve the interdepartment transfers to 5/28/24 as noted on the budget versus actual expenditure report and forward this to the, no, I'm sorry, doing it wrong.
Just us.
Motion to approve the intra-department transfers to 5/8/24 as noted on the budget versus actual expenditure report with total increases of $91,397.28 and decreases of $91,397.28. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second. Any discussion on that item? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 3-0. Second, on interdepartment transfers, I make a motion to approve the interdepartment transfers through 5/28/24 as noted on the budget versus actual expenditure report and forward that to the Board of Finance for their review and possible approval. Do I have a second?
Second.
Bob seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
I think we should seriously consider talking to the state about where they are in that conversation with the special ed.
Oh, God, yes.
I can say that when I was an auditor of municipalities for 35 years, probably the last 30 of them, they talked about doing special education statewide, and they're still talking about that. I do know it's a pretty interesting read. If you read about Enfield, they had 72 new students move in with special ed costs. And this is, I don't have any involvement, this is just reading from the news. 72 new students moved in. The board won't give them any more money, and they're laying off 120, or they sent out notices to 120 teachers. That it's a huge problem everywhere, and that seems to be about the worst I've heard.
It's
Schools would
massive.
shut down.
I know, I'm sure you have done the same thing. I've been to our state rep and our state senator every single year to ask them to please have the state address this issue. It is killing communities, it's killing school systems. The amount of money you could easily, the Board of Ed could come to us in September and say, we need another $1.5 million.
I think that.
Right? And we would have to find.
It's gotta come from Sean Scanlon, or it's gotta be worked from a different angle. The state rep, state senator's not gonna get us anywhere, like,
Marcia's
someone
point.
needs to take it higher.
You know, we did, on other topics, we did joint letters with school board.
Yeah, that
and the
worked
Board of-
great,
That works
Marcia.
great. So why don't we make, and hit all the players,
Yeah.
right? It's not just the legislators.
No,
It's
go to the
the-
governor
It's the
and-
head of the education department, it's the treasurer, it's the governor. You know, all of them need to hear from us with, and in fact, maybe we get our legislators to jointly sign it with us.
Yeah.
Right, they did
That's a
that
good
once
idea.
on one of our letters.
Let's
So,
give it a try.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
So,
Hit 'em
this is
all.
another one of these topics we all
agree.
vociferously agree on. We ought
Yeah.
to take advantage of that power, because I think the Board of Finance feels that way, the Board of Ed feels that way as well.
Yeah. I think that's a good idea. Get all three boards, get Steve Harding, get Marty Fonsello. Every resident in town would sign that. Okay. So back to the approval. We had a motion, we had a second, we had a discussion. All those in favor on the interdepartment transfer, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, 3-0. Okay.
And I should just say that philosophy about the contingencies is not just with the Board of Ed. We've done that with the capital, we've done that with every budget, that what was happening is people would and then we do a zero-based budgeting, and these expenditures are supported by 675 pages of detail. And what was happening was people were adding a contingency to everything, and that's what inflates the budget. So this would be best practice to limit the contingency to one specific contingency line, and that is in the policy for the fund balance policy on how we do that.
Okay.
Number 2, capital non-recurring. That is just a schedule for your benefit to see. It's got the pink highlights at the top. We're not asking for any transfers. You'll notice that we approved the budget on May 21st. And so those items that are being paid for with the current year excess revenues have been included in the listing there. ARPA funds, no transfers are being there, but you've got the details as number 3 on your list, or if you're looking at paper, the yellow highlights at the top. The bonded capital, they're closing out the boys' locker room. The MBC would like to approve a change order. They have requested $1,612 as their final transfer to close that out. And we would take it out of year-end 21-22 capital projects fund balance.
Okay. I would make a motion to approve the proposed transfer between projects in the bonded capital projects fund as shown on the attached report through 5/31/24 and forward to the Board of Finance for their review and approval. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion on this?
I have a comment.
Sure.
The outside door of the locker room, it's probably 4 feet by 4 feet, and it was unfinished. Like, they didn't carry the project to the outside of the door. So if you're in the school, you'll see what it just,
We'll look at
it just doesn't.
The
like-
outside door's not been updated.
So the door, there's like a little entryway and the door's kind of on the left to
Yeah.
get into the boys' locker room. It's like,
Oh, that
it's
little
like the foyer,
vestibule area?
right. It's like unfinished.
Okay.
It's just an
I'll mention
observation.
it. I'll
It
mention
doesn't
it.
look
I'll
good
mention
after
it to
spending
John.
millions on it.
Yeah.
I did have a question. What is this change request that costs $1,600? Do you know?
It's not one specific one. They have potential change orders. I think the last time I looked at their minutes, it was 32,000 of.
It's 32,000, and they only had 30,000. Is that the issue?
Correct.
Okay, because I know they had an abatement issue that they had to deal with that surprised them. So that was one of when they were clearing paneling off of a certain wall. And they had to do that, and that left other things exposed. So I just was curious if that was the same thing.
To narrow it down, that could be the issue of what it is that they've been. We give them a report every month, and they're very good at scrutinizing every single potential change order before they approve it as a change order.
I agree with that. Okay, all right, that's all. I just was
Okay.
curious if it was the same thing.
Good. So we had a motion, we had a second, we had a discussion. Is there any further discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, carries 3-0. Thank you.
And then the final report that you have, if you're looking electronically, it's number 5. If you're looking in paper, it's got green highlights, is the revenue report. Any questions on any of that, or anything else finance?
Well done.
I don't have any, and as we discussed the other day, we're gonna land this under budget, right? Slightly under.
We have no choice but to land it under budget.
Still, no, it's nice to be able to say that. Okay. Well, we could always go for an additional. Okay, thank you. Any further questions for Marcia?
No.
Okay, thank you. New items, 43 Silver Mine. The lease is coming up for 43 Silver Mine. I spoke to Barbara,
Yeah.
the agent, the real estate agent that worked with us previously to rent this property, and her opinion was that due to two things. One, market conditions and the fact that the owner has completely redone all the floors in there, he's a flooring contractor, that we should leave the rent where it is at $2,800 per month. That seemed to me reasonable. She's an expert. She does a lot of this. I would make a motion that we leave the.
When we raised the rents, was this one of the ones that we raised
Oh, yeah.
substantially?
Yeah, we did.
So it's pretty soon after we did that. That was like
Yes.
a year ago or a year and a half ago?
Yes. And he's done a lot of work on the house for free. He didn't charge us, he just did it. They're good tenants. We haven't had any issues with them. And she's recommending we leave the rent where it is, which we obviously will look at it again in a year.
Did Tammy do any fair market value, like assessments on this rental property for this year?
No, not Tammy, with Barbara Adler.
Well, in the past, Tammy did
Tammy?
like some analysis for each property to determine the fair market value.
She could, but the fair market value doesn't drive the rent.
Well, it does, because if you look at comparable rentals around town, we wanna make sure we're getting.
I thought you told me that she had looked at
Yeah.
comparable rentals and this was
Yeah,
comparable.
I mean, she does this all day long for comparable rents, for the same size of house, same, similar amenities, things like that. And Barbara was pretty comfortable with leaving it at 2,800. Do you have a suggestion to change it?
No, I was just curious if there's been any change over the last year.
No, anecdotally, I think rents are about as high as they've ever been. They're getting some really incredible rents in some of the places, but from what I've seen, it's steady over the last year. It's high, but it's steady. I would tend to believe we should take Barbara's advice on this one.
So moved.
Okay, so we have a motion to set the rent at 2,800 for the next year. We have a second from Tara. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries 3-0. Okay. Updates, we have attached in your, but I don't know if we really need to go through this, but we attach them. Every year, we have to be provided with a summary of capital tax recovery collections, suspense list of items that have gone, debts owed to the town, typically on motor vehicles where people have moved out of state. And we are provided with that list of those that have gone longer than, I believe it's 2 years, and we put that on the suspense list. We still do chase them. We still do follow up with them to try to get these amounts paid with mixed success. And then there's also a write-up on the library grant with Caroline Ford, the librarian, had already discussed how the funding was used from that grant. I don't know if we need to go over that again, do we?
No, but I'd like to make a motion to add an update about the pipeline letter, just so I'm clear as to where we are and what's happening.
Sure, I'll second that. All those in favor of adding that as an item?
Aye.
Carries 3-0. Okay. So I have not received anything. I put a call into Governor Lamont's office. One of his assistants, he said he would look into it and then get back to us. Things move at the speed of government. I'll continue following up with Katie Dykes and Governor Lamont's office. And I'll also lob a call into the Lieutenant Governor to see if she can light a little fire to get a response, but I haven't gotten a response.
I mean, she was at Wiskaneer with you. You didn't talk to her about that?
No, because we were doing a Veterans Affair, and it went really quickly, and it was her event, and I didn't think.
Perfect opportunity to say,
I thought it
we
was-
have this pipeline right here.
Yeah.
So I would just recommend that, because I think you sent it snail mail.
Yeah.
Like, if you can take it and digitally send it as follow-up,
Sure.
that goes a long way, and then you have track record of what it is for doing. And
Good idea.
you
Will
can
do.
push for a response.
Yeah, will do.
Yeah, we actually asked them to come meet with us.
I mean, just doing the letter is one thing, but it's, we need to stay on top of it, follow up.
Okay, good. I'll do that. That's not a problem.
Thank you for calling their office, though, to check.
Yeah. Welcome. Okay, we added that. We'll move on to our consent agenda. I make a motion that the selectmen approve items A to E on the consent agenda, which are comprised of selectmen's approval of routine matters. There are none this month. The meeting minutes for the Board of Selectmen meetings of 5/6 and 5/15. Driveway bond release of $750 for one. Excavation bond release, $2,000. And employee changes, a new hire of Yesenia Cruz, who's a part-time land use administrative assistant effective May 28th. Do I have a second to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
Second. Any discussion on that?
Is Ms. Cruz replacing somebody?
Yeah, Christine is moving over to the tax assessor,
Okay.
right?
Where is she coming from?
You seen it? I don't remember. I can find out for you.
I mean, does she have land use experience from another town, or?
She does, I think, she does. But she's gonna work with us part-time. I can get you more detail on it if you want.
So that position is no longer full-time, it's now part-time?
It's part-time right now, yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye, please. Aye?
Aye.
Aye, okay, 3-0. Appointments, Community Center Ad Hoc Committee. I'll just read this for people who are watching. The Community Center Ad Hoc Committee will develop a plan to transition the center school building into a community center to serve all residents. This committee will build on the prior work done by the Ad Hoc Center School Committee, which laid out the needs of the town. The board will be appointed for 2 years with their terms ending on 6/1/2026. The Community Center Ad Hoc Committee will have 9 members to include Robert Sinzer as the chair, Jessica Pineda, Cassie Dunn, Renee Santiago, Paul Checo, Marianne Gaffey, Kevin Archer, Loretta Donovan, and Ken O'Hara. That is the motion I make to appoint those people to that committee. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I'm looking, I sent you both an email. There was one individual who wrote to us as a board, Kim, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting her last name.
Sanford.
Sanford.
Sanford?
Sanford, right.
And she wasn't on the list,
Right.
so.
Yeah, then Steve
or-
responded
And
to
you
you on
had,
that.
right,
Yeah.
but,
It
so was she considered?
Oh, yes.
So
Yes, I
can you
just
maybe
mistyped her
step me
name.
through your school of thought here, like, what was your, how did you come to this conclusion? Because I don't think this is fair and unbiased.
How is it not fair and unbiased?
I said that in my email, which is, there was a mistake in the note you sent with somebody listed twice.
Yeah, Mr. Hara, I listened twice and I should have
I don't
listed,
think there
Kim.
should be 2 people from the library and 2 people from Parks and Rec. I think it needs to be more citizen action group type work, not people who have been after this for years with an agenda. Like, we know the library people want a new library, but maybe we don't need a new library. And the Parks and Rec people, sorry, Steve, but that's your spouse, like, you know.
I would recuse myself on voting yes for her.
So why do we need 2 people from each of those places when we should have
Um,
more people from the public who did come forward? I mean, there's a lot of other folks.
We looked at this and we thought about this and we discussed it. Robert Zinser chaired the previous committee, so he has an extensive amount of experience in doing that. They did an incredibly good job with the ad hoc committee before in learning the needs of the town. So he would be able to hit the ground running. On that board were Kevin Archer and Loretta Donovan. I should point out both Republicans, who both did a really good job on that prior committee. And then, in order to be fair, we had Robert Zinser and Jessely from the library board, and then we thought the library board gets to appoint someone, and they wanted to appoint Jessely, right? Robert Zinser, we found out, is the treasurer of the library board now, and I was not aware of that. So if we have 2 people from the library board, it seemed fair to have 2 people from Parks and Rec. A rep from the MBC, Paul Checo is an architect and an expert. Kevin Archer is a structural engineer. Loretta Donovan has a lot of experience on the previous ad hoc committee.
I didn't see her come through to us. Was there an email about Loretta?
Yeah, there should have been.
Maybe I missed it, but.
And then we looked at, we try to get this balance in the for Ds and Rs and Us, and we didn't get it perfect, but we got 5 Rs, 2 Ds, and 2 Us. So there's a little overweight in the R side, but I'm not concerned about that. These are all capable, smart people who really care about the town. So I thought we achieved a reasonable
I think
balance.
that there's other folks who stepped up, like Ms. Correa and Ms. Sanford, that have
Yeah.
great background, and they could bring a fresh perspective and new thoughts, and just looking at it from different angles, because again, all these people, you know as well as I do, Steve, have been after this in their own, you know, they're drinking out of their own soda straws.
Yeah, a lot of these people do have experience in previously with this work on the center school, but I view that as a plus, personally.
Well,
Bob?
let's remember what this committee is doing.
And
This-
that's when you read the charge, Bob, it doesn't kind of speak to, like, if the charge, what is it we're doing?
So-
Is it
so-
a library we're looking at?
No,
or-
no, 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 no. Tara, we have already made the decision of what this center school is gonna be reused for. It's a community center. We're not remaking that decision. This isn't about lobbying to have something done differently than it is. This is a group who needs to study. Should we knock it down and build new? Should we, how much space do we want to allocate for library type of activities? How much space do we want to put in for Parks and Rec type of activities? How much shared office space? It's about space management, about build versus renovate. It's about collecting public input. And I look at these people, they're all good general people in the town, but we're not here lobbying that this is a library or this is Parks and Rec. This is more about collecting, well, how much space do we really need for a library and why? And then collect input from the public on, do you agree? And then similarly with Parks and Rec. So I think it's important to have the head of the new library committee on this. We've already appointed Zinsser, so that's 2 library people. And to be fair, have people who are expert on what goes on Parks and Rec in the town as volunteers, not as department heads. And the reason I liked Ken O'Hara on it as a new person and member is he does municipal building projects. That's what in his bio brief. I thought he was the perfect fit to mix Ken O'Hara, who runs municipal projects, Kevin Archer, who's an engineer, and Paul Checker, who's an architect. 3 out of the 9 people who could really help guide what's in the range of the doable, right, from an architectural point of view. And the rest of the people on here are going to be people who are good public citizens who are going to help communicate and collect and help guide a discussion over the next 2 years. And it's going to take some time because we did this on the schools. It's going to take some time to actually get some consensus on what do we need to do. I like the mix of people here.
I do too. Very well put, Bob. Thank you.
If this was I would agree, where I would agree with you, Tara, is if we were going back to ground zero and saying, what should we do, right? Are we gonna make this the new police station, or are we gonna make this something different? Or we're going to knock it down and make it into ball fields, right? And I would be saying, I want that to be a completely different group of people, but that's not where we are. We've made the decision, this is the community center, and that's what we'd like to do. So now let's go figure out what the right space mix is and what the right way to do it.
Yeah.
So there will be no library there, it's community center
It's
strictly.
community center, of which library will be part of it.
And Parks and Rec will be part of it.
The prior committee said, best use is library and Parks and Rec. Library can be part of a community center.
So do we have data on whether or not there's a need for a new library? How many?
We've already had that discussion.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that needs to be re-examined.
I don't.
I
Well,
don't.
yeah,
They did.
because there aren't many patrons there.
If you read their ad hoc report, they did an incredibly good job at driving down into details. They held interviews with 40 town I'm not gonna.
They talked to a lot of people.
A lot of people, a lot of organizations, and did really good work. That decision and the work that they did came back to us with very clearly Parks and Rec, library are the 2 largest needs in the town. There are other needs, meeting rooms, things like that, that I'm sure they will address. And this, again, will be an iterative process. But the people to bring in, that, to Bob's point, that decision's already been made.
And to me, there's a big crossover here, because if you think about the library as stacks of books and the ability to go in and check things out, you think of one type of library. Most of the last proposal that came forward with the library was, we have a crying need for small meeting spaces, bigger meeting spaces, places where groups could get together. And because of it, the library was carrying forward a proposal, God, it was what, 5, 6, 7 years ago, that was filled with meeting space needs, which to me isn't a library alone. It fits so much better in a community center because meeting spaces could be exactly what you need for You know, whether it's a person going to meet with a tutor, or somebody who needs to go meet with their lawyer, or somebody, or a group of 10 people who are in a knitting club, right, would like to meet. They all cross over very smoothly in a community center structure. So I've been a big advocate for stop thinking library, stop thinking Parks and Rec, start thinking about it together and about the needs of the town. And that's kind of where my head's at. So,
So are we gonna create an ad hoc committee for the new police department? Like, what is it we're saying
I think we
here?
should.
Are we
I think we
putting this
should.
before that? What's?
I think we should. I think we absolutely should. The police department and what they need is gonna be a major investment also, and we need to have experts to help us and guide us. There are new state laws that we are gonna have to meet. So, yeah, we're gonna have to set up a committee for that too. The state is allowing police departments and towns to slow walk these changes to meet the Police Accountability Act, but there's gonna come a reckoning day where they say, hey, guys, you need to get this done.
yeah, but Steve, I think we must have those two committees going and
Yeah, I
completing
agree.
about the same time, so that we can decide what's the financial impact to the town, and what are we gonna do first, if we have to do one first or second. We can't put one aside. That
No.
that was part of the problem with, sadly, the problem with the library proposal is they were in a year before the school proposal, which everybody said, I can't vote on a library until I know what the school looks like. So we need to know what both of them look like, and we need to bring them together at the same time.
And same
Wouldn't
thing
you
with the
agree?
police, yes, same
Wouldn't
thing
you
with the
agree?
police department and community center. We want to know as a town, okay, here's the police department, it's gonna cost X and this is what we need. Here's the community center, it's gonna cost Y and this is what we need. What do we do? We make that determination then. These projects always, like Candlewood Lake Elementary School, take 3 to 4 years before you even begin to think about spending money. So the time to start planning for these is now, because we're probably not gonna actually break ground on these projects for 3, 4, 5, 6 years.
Yeah.
It's a long
And that leads me
timeframe.
to another thing I wanted to say about the charge. Are we talking about the charge now as well, or just this?
We can, yeah, sure.
Because, I think we need some language in here that says the committee should regularly meet with advisors such as Ralph Tedesco and Laura Murphy, people who have the inside perspective. Oh, and the school board, Dan,
Yeah, Dan Colo,
Yep.
yeah.
you know,
I
the
agree.
folks who know that facility, not to mention the fact that you use examples of West Hartford, Darien, Richfield. Pettibone in New Milford is the prime example. That is the best, closest analogy we have. And Laura was in that building for many years.
But that building, they didn't do a lot of work to.
They're just now, I think the
Yeah,
budget just
but
passed to go after it.
they're
with
starting
tens of
now.
millions of dollars, but point being, like, they didn't shutter, they just kind of are band-aiding it along, and,
Right, I agree.
you know, if
So-
if center sits for another 3 years,
It's gonna be more than Band-Aiding.
there's a reason we moved the kids out, so, and all the reports have led to demo.
Well, and I've always been a fan of using the location, maybe some of the historic nature of it, but mostly demo. Maybe,
Yeah.
you know, Kevin Archer at one point said there's parts of that building you could take down to the metal
To the
frame.
steel
right?
frame,
And-
yeah.
But it's an old wooden building, and when we did the school stuff, one of the number one things that came when we did that school analysis is the cost of maintaining the building as it was outrageous over a long period of time, over 10 years. And so it almost was the cost of building a new elementary school. And so why would that to me hasn't changed. But this is where this group needs to get together and get more specific, right? Get an architect in there who will say, yes, that's in fact the case. And here's what you could do, not what.
And here's what it would cost to
you know,
rehab
so-
versus building new, or a combination thereof.
So we can make an
Rehab
informed
how?
decision.
Right,
So,
right.
and I've lived through this once, and it's great once you start getting real data.
Yeah.
So,
And this group will be meeting with all the town managers because they can provide.
but I think it's a
lot.
great idea to add something
Yeah.
that utilize the
I'll add
staff
something to it.
effectively.
I'll
right,
add.
You know,
I'll add to
because those guys have spent a lot of time looking at this building.
Yeah. I'll add that to this. Okay.
By the way, I just will also add, as since we're on the discussion, the candidates that came forward were all really good.
Really good.
I mean, some very involved, some new to the process.
Would you like to see?
And to me, it kind of, in the end, came down to a couple of new people that you know, who have, who you had to choose between them. And for me, Mr. O'Hara was the epitome of the kind of person you need on this, because he does municipal building projects. He's a vice president of a construction firm. So.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's what that needed. It would be too soft if we didn't have engineers and municipal project managers and architects in there.
You know, this is one of those cases that, you know, we have more qualified, great candidates than we have space for.
Yeah.
I wish we had that for every single board.
That's why one Parks and Rec representative and one library board representative should be removed and replaced with these willing volunteers who do have expertise.
I'm not in favor of that. I'm comfortable with this as it is.
Well, why don't we vote?
Yeah. So I made the motion. Did I have a second?
Yeah, I seconded.
You seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'm gonna be a no on the list.
Okay. 2-1. Okay, good. That is the end of our meeting, so I will, without further work and desire, I will make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unless you want to discuss. Okay, aye. It's 3